Imagine waking up one morning. You step outside your door, only to be greeted by an ominous storm cloud hanging in the sky. The wind is fierce, howling around you. You look at the horizon and see the first signs of what is no longer a rare event. A hurricane. It's coming closer, faster, stronger. A reminder of the fierce storms that have become all too common in recent years. You step forward, but the streets are already flooded. Cars are submerged up to their rooftops, and people are scrambling to save whatever they can before the floodwaters take everything. In this new world, these events have become the new normal. Once-in-a-lifetime storms have started to happen annually, and every season seems to bring a new disaster. As you walk through the streets, the air feels heavy, thick with toxins. The once clear blue sky is now a dull gray, smog choking out any sunlight. Breathing has become a struggle. For the first time you realize this is our reality. What happened to our planet? How did we reach a point where our cities, our lands, and our very breath are under siege? The truth is, we did this to ourselves. But here's the most important part. It's not too late to change. Act 1. The science of climate change. What's happening? Our planet's climate has always been a subject of change. Natural cycles of warming and cooling, ice ages, volcanic eruptions. It's part of Earth's natural process. But what we are witnessing now is different. The current shift isn't driven by natural forces, but by human activity. We are pushing the planet beyond its limits. The Earth's temperature is rising over the last 150 years. Human activities have led to an unprecedented increase in global temperatures. According to scientific studies, global temperatures have risen by about 1.2 degrees Celsius, 2.2 degrees Fahrenheit, since the late 1800s. While this may seem small, it has had enormous consequences. A rise of just 2 degrees Celsius will change the world as we know it. The rise in temperature has led to more frequent heat waves, stronger storms, and a greater incidence of natural disasters. These are no longer isolated incidents. We see them more and more, and their impact is greater each time. The consequences of this warming have been most severe in the Arctic, where temperatures are rising at a rate 4 times faster than the global average. Ice sheets that once covered vast areas are now shrinking at alarming rates. The Arctic ice cap is disappearing, and as it melts, sea levels rise, threatening to engulf coastal cities around the world. Rising sea levels. The melting of glaciers and ice sheets is not just a matter of the Arctic. It's a global crisis. Sea levels have been steadily rising for decades, and if the current trajectory continues, many of the world's coastal cities will be submerged. The Pacific Islands, the Maldives, parts of Bangladesh, Florida, and New York City could be gone in our lifetime. Even a small rise in sea levels, just a few inches, can result in devastating floods. And once the ice melts, there's no going back. The cycle is irreversible. Extreme weather events. Perhaps one of the most terrifying consequences of a warming planet is the increased frequency and intensity of extreme weather events. From hurricanes to wildfires, the planet's ecosystems are being pushed beyond their limits. In the Amazon rainforest, once a lush green haven, droughts have become more frequent and severe, causing trees to die off at an alarming rate. California and parts of Australia have experienced record-breaking wildfires that spread across miles of forest, destroying everything in their path. These fires have not only killed countless animals, but have also displaced thousands of people from their homes. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the planet, the increased heat in the atmosphere leads to stronger storms, bigger hurricanes, and flooding. In countries like Philippines, Puerto Rico, and the Caribbean, Hurricanes have become stronger and more destructive. Entire communities are left in ruin, and rebuilding becomes a never-ending task. Act 2. Who is responsible? Who is to blame for this environmental crisis? It's easy to point to the natural world and blame hurricanes, wildfires, or droughts, but the truth is more complicated. We must ask ourselves, who is responsible for the current climate crisis? The short answer? We are. Human activity, especially the burning of fossil fuels, has led to the vast increase in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. But while we all share some responsibility, there are specific industries and corporations that have contributed far more than others. The fossil fuel industry. For over a century, the fossil fuel industry has been one of the biggest contributors to climate change. Oil, coal, and natural gas are the primary sources of carbon emissions. These industries have generated massive wealth, but at a cost to the environment and the future of our planet. While individuals are responsible for their carbon footprints, these industries are the ones that have pushed the world to the brink of disaster. For years, fossil fuel companies have had the power to influence policy and suppress research on climate change. Many of these companies have known about the dangers of their actions for decades, but have used their wealth and power to delay action. A small group of corporations. In reality, just 100 companies are responsible for around 70% of global emissions. These corporations profit from the destruction of the planet, while communities around the world suffer the consequences. From oil extraction to coal mining, these industries have contributed directly to rising temperatures, shifting weather patterns, and widespread environmental degradation. Despite knowing about the dangers, these companies have continued their activities without accountability, undermining scientific reports, lobbying against regulation, and fighting climate action at every step. Act 3. What happens if we do nothing? What will happen if we do nothing? If we allow the same industries to continue polluting unchecked, if we continue to ignore the warnings, how will our world look in the future? The world of tomorrow. A world on fire. By the year 2075, the Earth will have warmed by 2 degrees Celsius or more. A seemingly small rise in temperature, but one with catastrophic consequences. Global agricultural systems will fail. Crops will die due to extreme heat and droughts, and fresh water will become increasingly scarce. Countries that once had access to clean water will face droughts, famine, and food insecurity. At the same time, rising sea levels will lead to mass displacement. Entire populations will be forced to migrate, and millions will lose their homes. Coastal cities like New York, Tokyo, and Venice will be submerged. What we once considered the safety of our homes will be turned into wastelands. Political and social instability. As more people are displaced, the world will see an increase in conflict. Nations will argue over resources, water, and livable land. Political systems will be destabilized as people are forced to flee their homes in search of better living conditions. Climate refugees will become the new norm, and nations will have to deal with the pressure of welcoming these displaced people. The climate refugee crisis. In the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, entire regions will experience increasing desertification, making the land uninhabitable. People will be forced to migrate in search of food, water, and shelter. Countries that already struggle with high populations will be faced with unprecedented challenges. The refugee crisis of today will seem small in comparison to what we will see in the coming decades. Act 4. The future we can still choose. It's not too late. The future is not set in stone. We can still choose a different path, one where we stop the damage before it's irreversible. Renewable energy. The path forward. We have the power to change. Renewable energy is here, and it's more accessible than ever before. Solar, wind, hydroelectric, and geothermal energy have the potential to replace fossil fuels. These sources of energy are clean, sustainable, and affordable. Transitioning to renewable energy would reduce greenhouse gas emissions, help fight climate change, and provide clean, cheap energy for the future. Countries like Germany, China, and Costa Rica are leading the way in adopting renewable energy. They have seen the potential benefits: cleaner air, more jobs in renewable industries, and a future with a lower carbon footprint. Sustainable agriculture. We must also focus on sustainable agriculture. We need to move away from industrial farming, which is a major contributor to carbon emissions, deforestation, and the destruction of ecosystems. By shifting to sustainable farming practices, protecting forests, and promoting plant-based diets, we can reduce emissions, preserve natural habitats, and make our food systems more resilient to the challenges of climate change. Government action and policy change. For real change to happen, governments must lead the way. The policies we enact today will shape the world of tomorrow. Governments need to prioritize green infrastructure, public transportation, carbon pricing, and environmental regulations. Corporate polluters must be held accountable. The shift to renewable energy and sustainability must be legislated and enforced. Closing scene. A call to action. This is our moment, the chance to create the world we want. We can still create a future where clean energy powers our cities, where forests are thriving, and where the earth remains a place of beauty for generations to come. The choice is in our hands. We can either be the generation that stood by and watched the earth crumble, or we can be the ones who chose to protect it. The future begins today.